Welcome back to the Mountain Man Medical YouTube channel. Today I thought we'd do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about a movie that I saw last week called Extraction, starring Chris Hemsworth. It's on Netflix right now. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Wasn't the best movie that I've ever seen in my life, but it did a pretty good job. I appreciate when Hollywood isn't lazy and they actually do the research to make these action movies seem more realistic and kind of follow along with real tactics and real techniques. Now, I get it. We don't want to see a realistic movie. No one would watch it if it was completely realistic. It would be very boring and it wouldn't be very long and it just wouldn't be that great of a movie. But taking the time to put in a couple of key details into the movie so that it presents a little bit better and shows that they weren't lazy, I think it's a good deal. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I saw in it and some of the things that I appreciated, and show you a little bit about why they did the things that they did. One of the things that kind of stood out to me was they got some of the tactics right. Now, obviously, Rake, the protagonist of this film, he is a superhero. He's just running through guys, John Wick style, messing up all of these guys. And the entire time that I'm watching this movie, I'm like, man, the guys that he's fighting are a bunch of potatoes. Like, he almost never gets into a situation where he's just completely outmatched. He just lazily mows these guys down without a second thought, and they just can't do anything to hurt him for the most part. Now, he does get hurt. He takes a knife wound after he's fighting one of the antagonists. He's knife fighting in the street, and he takes a wound to his right arm, I think. And then once they get to a moment of peace, he has Avi, the drug lord's son, apply this bandage to him. And they do a good job of representing what that might actually look like. But I thought I would take a little time and talk about what they're doing and why they're doing it and why they're using that particular bandage, an Israeli bandage, for his wound. Now, the bandage that they're using in the movie is an actual trauma dressing bandage that is stocked in medical kits. It's called an Israeli bandage. It is a pressure dressing. Now, it's different from most pressure dressings. Most pressure dressings have just an elastic band with some sort of absorbent material on it. The Israeli bandage actually has a couple of plastic pieces that help increase the pressure. And you can see from this one that I've taken out of the package, it's got this little clip in it. And this clip here, once you come all the way around and you fold it down, it applies extra pressure over the wound site. It's got this absorbent material here to soak up large quantities of blood. And this is the clip that you can see him coaching him through how to put that additional pressure on. So why would you want to use an Israeli pressure bandage or a pressure bandage at all instead of a tourniquet? If you're bleeding badly, shouldn't you just put on a tourniquet? Well, the correct answer is no, not necessarily. If you're worried that the person that you're working on is going to die from blood loss, put a tourniquet on just to be safe. Now, if you're working on a casualty and you think that their wound is pretty bad, but not bad enough to need a tourniquet, that's when you want to use a pressure dressing. A pressure dressing just applies pressure over the wound site and tries to control the blood flow with just direct pressure. The Israeli bandage, of course, uses this clip to apply an additional point of pressure to the wound and makes it a little more successful at controlling that bleeding a little bit better. The back of it is very absorbent. You can collect a decent amount of blood in here. So if you are seeing blood starting to soak through this bandage and it doesn't look like the bleeding is being controlled with this pressure dressing, that's when it's time to upgrade to a tourniquet. If I was you, I would just leave this in place over the wound. It might not be doing a lot of good, but it's probably doing something. So we're just going to leave this over the wound site. It's going to help to keep it clean anyway. And then above it, we're going to put a tourniquet 2 to 4 inches above the wound site. We're going to tighten it down until we stop seeing blood soaking through the bandage. And then, of course, we're going to call 911. We're going to get paramedics on the scene. We're going to get that casualty to the hospital where they can get some surgery to take care of their problem. Now I'm going to show you a little demonstration about how to put on this Israeli bandage dressing and then show you how to get it secured down. So if you have an Israeli pressure bandage, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to come in this vacuum sealed packaging, and it's scrunched down nice and tight so you can get it in, wedge it into more areas. So the Israeli trauma dressings are going to come packaged like this. They're going to be vacuum sealed so that it's scrunched down in a nice compact package so you can get more in them. But as you can see, that this is a little on the big side. It's not a tiny pressure dressing. This is made to cover a large wound, like a knife wound, like you see in the movie. And here we can see some instructions here on how to apply it on the back. Now, I grabbed a couple of our pressure dressings that we sell. We do sell the Israeli bandages as well, but this is what we stock our medical kits with. This is the North American Rescue ETD, Emergency Trauma Dressing, and this is a small 4-inch size. You can kind of see it right there. So this is 4 inches, so it's not going to cover as big a wound as that Israeli bandage. And this is a pressure dressing, but it doesn't have that clip on it to apply additional pressure over the wound site. But it will apply pressure to the wound, and this is a good option for you unless you have a massive wound. And the Israeli pressure dressings are usually better for larger medical kits, taking care of large injuries. And these are better for more of your everyday carry, smaller medical kits, maybe in your IFACs or something like that. So this is the emergency trauma dressing from a North American Rescue, and this is the exact same thing, but from North American Rescue, but this is what's called the flat pack. So it's nice and thin. You can see that this is still kind of fat. You can stack up more of these if you need to. A little bit smaller, easier to get them into smaller medical kits. This might work better for you depending on what you're trying to do. All right, so I'm gonna apply it to my leg here. Hopefully you can see that. I'm gonna take this out of the package, and you can see here these little tabs where you can just tear them open. You just take it, rip it open, and inside you've got the pressure dressing. You throw that away. Now, you don't have to throw this away. You can keep this, and this can be used as an occlusive dressing. You can open this up and cut this into squares or whatever you need to and patch up a sucking chest wound if you are so inclined. We'll go over that in a future video, but you can use the packaging as an occlusive dressing if you need to, so hang on to it. All right, so this is the pressure bandage. This is the Israeli pressure bandage, and this is what it's going to look like when it comes out of the package. You're going to have the absorbent pad here, and then you're going to have the tail, and this tail will be attached by a little string right about here. And what that string does is, if I was to completely lose control of this, let this go, this wouldn't completely unravel. That little string there helps to hold it in place while I'm getting it out of the packaging and get it situated. It's very easy to break that in an emergency. You're probably not even going to notice that it's there. It's so easy to break it, but it will prevent this from just going all over the place and making your life miserable, because this will get lost, it'll drag on the ground, it'll get full of dirt and sticks, and it's just a pain in the butt. So that's a nice little feature. What we're going to do is we're going to take this absorbent pad, and we're going to imagine I've got a wound right here. We're going to expose the wound and take a look at where it is. So we're going to take our trauma shears or whatever we've got. We're going to open this up and take these pants off or whatever we need to do to get a look at that wound. We're going to take the absorbent pad and we're going to put it right over that. We're going to make sure this is positioned right over top of that wound, because again, this is what is putting in that additional pressure, and which is what makes this trauma dressing so much more effective than just a regular pressure dressing. We're going to take this end and wrap it under, and then we're just going to stretch it a little bit and wrap it under. Now remember, this is not a tourniquet. We're not trying to crank this thing on. We just want this firm. This applies gentle pressure. This isn't a tourniquet. If we need a tourniquet, we're going to use the tourniquet, but the bleeding is not that bad. We're not too worried. We're just going to use the pressure dressing to help control that blood flow. We're going to put the bandage in between the little clips, and then we're just going to pull back on itself and cinch that down nice and snug. Just going to come back up and around, and we're just going to keep going all the way around the leg until we come to the end. Try to make sure it's nice and looking pretty, not all bound up on itself. And then we're going to come here, and you got these little clips. Just pull up the sides, slip that on there, and I've found that this is a pretty effective way of securing it. These clips do pretty good. And then that's it. Pressure dressing is in place. and hopefully we're controlling the bleeding. Now, if we start to see blood soaking through this bandage, then it doesn't look like we are controlling the bleeding like we are supposed to. So what we're gonna do for that is we're just gonna take a tourniquet, we're gonna leave this in place and take the tourniquet and put it 2 to 4 inches above the wound site and crank that down until we stop seeing blood soak through this bandage. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. That's how to use an Israeli pressure bandage. If you got anything out of this, don't forget to hit the like and the sub button. And you can find all of these products on our website at mountainmanmedical.com, where we sell Israeli pressure bandages and some of this smaller North American Rescue ETD. We got a lot of different stuff on there. You should be able to find what you're looking for. If you don't, drop down a comment into the comment section and I'll try to help you out, and so you can figure out where to get that equipment. Other than that, don't have anything else for you. Go ahead and drop a comment down below about what your favorite part of that movie Extraction was, and also your least favorite part. How about that? Drop that down in the comments down below. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. I'll see you in the next one.